Hello, Congressional District 3. My name is Pam Keith. I am a Democratic candidate running for Florida's 18th Congressional District, which is the northern part of Palm Beach County and all of Martin and St. Lucie counties. Florida 18 is considered one of the main swing districts of Florida. It was Democratic in 2016. Our last congressman that was a Democrat was Patrick Murphy. In the 2016 election, we lost this seat. And so I am in the fight to bring it back to the blue side. This area is kind of a bit of the tiebreaker of Florida. We always, as Democrats, have to do really, really well in the counties that have more Democrats than Republicans. And 2 of those counties are in my district. There's only 12 in the state that have more Democrats than Republicans. So we got to kill it where they are. And that's why it's so important that we have a great candidate and a great fight in this particular race. So it's exciting. I ran for this district last cycle. I put in 19 months of really hardcore campaigning. And the advantage of that, even though I didn't prevail in that race, I built those networks, those connections, those interactions. I did so many town halls and speeches and meetings and, protests and all of that. And now that's really gold in the pocket of a candidate, because no candidate can campaign in the traditional way in this COVID environment. It's much tougher to try to start fresh in this environment. It's a lot easier to just build on what you've already done in this environment. And so it's an advantage that I ran for the seat before. Our incumbent Republican is, just a lockstep Donald Trump guy. And his claim to fame is that he's a veteran. He served honorably and was combat wounded. But he's allowed that to sort of shield him from criticism for not only being a bad representative of our district, but also just a bad spokesperson for veterans. So being a veteran myself, having served in the Navy, and deployed, and also taken up real work with the veterans issues, I think I'm in a position to challenge what he's done and not done without it coming off like I'm disrespecting his service. So I think that puts me in a much stronger position. And of course, I'm a firebrand. I just get out there, I get after it, I speak truth to power, I am fearless, and I'm not a can we all get along kind of Democrat. I'm a mama said knock you out kind of Democrat. And that is that's a different vibe. And I think people are ready for that, especially right now. So that's me.
Well, I actually can mirror that a little bit, because I started in June of 2016, pretty sure that the best chance I would have would be in 2020. So I have been pretty literally 7 days a week on the ground for 4 years, still the last couple of months. And the Republican handling of the pandemic and the excuses and whining they are doing, we knew how to do this in 2016, and he threw away the solution set. He demolished the pandemic response team. And we're going to suffer immensely more, because our country is doing the worst response of any other country in the world, and the next few months are going to be brutal and tragic.
Yeah, because
on him.
Well, it's on him, because the problem here is that every other leader in the world thinks their top priority ought to be saving the lives of the people in their country. We are the only country in the world whose leader thinks his top priority is just making sure the numbers look good for him. And the reason he's obsessed with that is because he is functionally a reality TV persona. Nothing has substance or value or realness to him. It's only a question of, what can I make it look like? That is the alpha and omega of how Donald Trump thinks. It doesn't matter if people are dying. If he can make it look like it's good for him, then he would have 500,000 people dying or 1 million. The only question he bandies about is, how does this make me look? Does this make me look good, or does it make me look bad? And actually addressing the problem of COVID by testing and tracing, he's afraid it's going to make him look bad. And so that's why we're not doing it. That's it.
Precisely right. The failure to trace and do containment is the only reason for doing a shutdown. And we did none of that. And the countries that did are opening back up and not dying. It's still a very difficult problem. You have to understand that you have a responsibility to others, and other countries let the scientists talk. And here we're letting the politicians talk, and it's tragic.
Yeah, but that's because we've ushered into governing, we've ushered into power a person who's bought into this myth that intelligence and education is a bad thing, that makes you, that gut instinct is so much more reliable than expertise, you know, that experience is not important, intelligence is not important, evidence is not important, it's just hunches and gut feelings and instincts. And
I'm glad you say that, yes.
But that is what right-wing talking heads have been selling to a gullible public for a long time, right? They've been selling that the universities are messing people up because they're turning them into liberals. They've been selling that you know, service is to be poo-pooed, and what's important is loyalty to a person or an idea and not to the people. So, you know, the reason that Donald Trump is president today is because he understood the resentment and the passion and the anger of a population whose worldview has been warped by people like Rush Limbaugh and Morton Downey Jr. for decades. And when those people were marginalized in the GOP, the Republicans fed them a little red meat from time to time, but basically just needed their votes to get across the line the legislation that helped them and their country club buddies. But Donald Trump came down an escalator and said, hey, I'm going to give front row billing to you, Mr. Rush Limbaugh listener, to you, you know, Mr. Alex Jones listener. I'm going to give you front billing. In order to keep those kind of people happy, he had to buy into the complete set of ridiculousness that is all of that, right? Conspiracyism, right? And so that's what we have. We have a person in the White House who believes in the power of nothing but suspicion, because they live in an entire universe based on no evidence and a whole lot of suspicion and hoaxes. The reason that Donald Trump accuses other people of hoaxes is because he himself trades in hoaxes. That's his calling card. So he thinks everybody does what he does, right? He doesn't comprehend that there are people in this world who would never, ever do something like that, because we're just not hardwired to do that. Deception ain't our game. Deception is his calling card. And so that's why we're in different planets.
We're seeing the end point of the government is bad movement that Reagan started. A corollary to that government is bad is the denial of science when it's profitable to do so for the cigarette companies, for the fossil fuel companies. But now we've changed the denial of science to the denial of intelligence. And this is sort of the ultimate evolution. When you set up the conditions of corruption with legalized corruption in our elections, then the consequences are rather predictable, and they are to bring us down to this point. And the question now is, will we pay enough attention to climb back out of the pit?
Well, I think we are, and I think people are a little bit fed up with the constant, you know, clown show of the Donald Trump White House. I certainly he has a loyal following, you know, and his loyal following can't be convinced of anything, because they consider disloyalty to Trump to be the only indicator of whether or not you're truthful, right? The only indicator of whether or not you ought to be listened to or whether you ought to be considered is the extent to which you love Donald Trump, right? So if you are a military person with 30 years of service, multiple awards, a leader of soldiers that has been respected for the duration of your life, if you say something that is critical of Donald Trump, his followers think that they need to discount that military person for the mere sin of being insufficiently worshipful of Donald Trump. And therefore that person is now the deep state, that person is now a liberal, that person is now to be discounted, right? It is the worst kind of self-deluding that you could imagine. It's almost like self-medicating stupidity, because you don't get to be that strong a military leader with that much background if you're stupid or wrong or unable to think. That does not happen. But
I think people are beginning to see that
in a heartbeat for no other reason.
I hope so. I can't believe that there's anything but speculation off of his base, that his base is crumbling.
No. The base has too much to lose if he gets out of power, because then they will have to confront what they've been doing and what they've been thinking and what they've been saying. They're holding on to him because he is the last bastion of their validation. They're not going anywhere. The good news is that there's more of us than them, and we're not going to be bamboozled by Russian bots this time. We're not going to be dissuaded from voting. We're not going to be beaten off the path by false and misleading advertisement. I mean, everybody now knows what Donald Trump is really about. And everybody knows that Joe Biden is 10 times the man that Donald Trump could ever hope to be. And there is no amount of, blackballing and slandering or defamation of Joe that's going to get us to agree to keep Trump in power. That is not happening. I don't care how much money he has or how many ads he runs. That is not happening.
What's most troublesome is the predicates that he's setting. He's saying, "Oh, California says vote by mail, so that's total garbage. It's all the corruption." Any way of voting apparently is wrong, and leads to
Tom, you know the story.
The question is, will he allow the election's results to be validated?
I don't know that it's up to him. It's not up to him.
That's not the Congress. That's not how elections work. Nothing to oppose his many devastations of constitutional authority.
I understand that, but the elections are, first of all, the election is set by Congress, not by the administration.
Boy, Congress
That's
is
number one.
Not our
Number
Congress, though.
Right? Number two. I'm sorry, Tom, what were you saying?
It's not our Congress. Our Congress does what the leaders of our Congress tell it to do, particularly in the Senate.
But the Senate doesn't control the election. The House controls the election. House controls the election. So the Senate has no say in it. And we're going to have the election on November 3rd. Whether he chooses to accept the results or not is to be seen, because it depends on how close it is. And also, I don't really care whether he accepts it or not. I mean, I don't think that anybody has a plan on what to do if this devolves into chaos. I don't think it's going to. I think that what's happening is you are seeing the desperate moves of a desperate, panicky man. The reason Donald Trump is so panicky right now is because his internal polling is telling him that he does not have this, and there's no path to him getting it. So now he feels like the right move is to try to undo the Russia investigation by attacking Barack Obama. There is nothing that could drive Black people to the polls faster than attacking Barack Obama. Like, that is the dumbest, the most counterproductive move he could possibly make. And it is so shamelessly dishonest. Everybody knows that he is doing that to help his own election. It's not even halfway close to credible. There's nothing credible about Donald Trump or Bill Barr or Pompeo. They're all liars. They've all been caught in too many lies to count. We don't care what they do. These are all collateral moves to try to undo the fact that he doesn't have the votes, and there's nothing he can do to bring the votes that he's lost back. His hope and prayer is that somehow he can turn around the economy between now and November so that he can boast about something, but that ain't happening. It's not going to happen, especially if he continues to be ignorant and stupid about dealing with this coronavirus. The more he sticks his head in the sand, the more he tries to boast and self-congratulate while 80,000 Americans have lost their lives. This guy's got no plan. So his theory is, let me throw as much chaos at the wall as I can. McConnell is working underneath to try to jam in as many ideological and unqualified judges as he can. But they know that in the end,
Pam, can we get I'm sorry we started late with you, but can we get a summary? We got Jen Perlman in a moment or two.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would just wrap it up and say, Tom, we are in unusual times. We are in extraordinary times. And what we are observing is in real time is the implosion of a political party that traded its values for temporary power. And ultimately that trade left it in a position where it is totally unmoored. And it is unmoored in anything that approaches a set of defensible moral principles. We're not really in a political fight. We're in a moral fight. And we're watching people die, and we're watching people tell us that dead people is not a big deal. Well, if it's not a big deal to them, cool, now we know, but we also know that you can no longer have power. And the American people are going to be taking power away from the GOP and from Republicans and from Trumpers everywhere, all over the ballot, all over the country, because that
I agree. I think that this is where I'm sitting is already a blue seat. We just have to show up and vote. And I'm sure that yours is a blue seat as well. And
we're going to make it that way.
Yeah. There is no defense for what this Congress and this president are doing. And
or this state legislature, or this state Senate, or this governor. I mean, we have we have 1 million people out of work looking for unemployment benefits in our state, and the GOP state legislature decided that they don't need a special session to fix a total debacle and unacceptable system that we have, because they don't feel anybody else's pain. They cannot relate to other people's suffering. The only thing they think is unfair in this world is having to pay too much in taxes. Everything else is totally
to our states is modeled on what happened with Maria in Puerto Rico, that we're going into state by state austerity as the states go broke, trying to cover the cost of this pandemic, which is a national issue. It is not a state by state issue.
I have to jump off at this point, Tom, because I'm a little bit beyond the time frame that I had, but I enjoyed
Sorry
chatting.
about that.
It's so good. We will do this again.
Okay, and good luck to you and the whole team up there in CD3. I know that's tough turf, but
yourself as well, Pam. Such a pleasure to see you again.
Okay, take care.
Bye.